Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I am your host Sandman. Today I'm going to be talking about my everyday carry options. Let's get into it. So my everyday carry options are going to be quite significantly much different than all of yours, but some of us are all on the same level and have of equal mind and equal taste. And I get asked all the time, Sandman, what do you carry every day? Because this is a gear review channel. This is a tool review channel. And I've never really been comfortable stating it because I didn't think people would just believe me, or maybe it was overkill. I don't know. So I wanted to talk about some of those options in this video today. I couldn't do this video review by just showing my hands because some of these objects are ginormous and I needed to be able to have a more face-to-face value here. Before I can get into my everyday carry, I need to explain some of my background and my training because that might help explain why I carry the things that I carry, and that would explain why it's completely different from what you carry. So let me start from the very beginning. I'm born and raised in Texas, here in America, and I do have an international audience. Some of my followers are from everywhere else in the world. So in Texas, I grew up in the Boy Scouts. So I was a Cub Scout, a Weeblo, a Boy Scout. I did not make it to Eagle Scout because when I was 12 years old, we were camping with the Boy Scout troop and we got caught in a flash flood, and one of our troopers died during the flash flood due to complications of having seizures during the lightning storm. And the Scoutmasters took that gentleman. He was actually the Eagle Scout. They took him to a hospital in the middle of the night, and then the pass that they took actually got flooded, so they couldn't come back and get us. So we were left out there for like 12 hours in this flash flood, and we all almost died. So after that experience, I was like, I'm done with scouting. But that left a very large imprint in my mind outside of what I'm about to tell you next, because I ended up going through several different survival schools trying to figure that out that I went through when I was 12 years old. So moving forward, my father was a mechanic, and he was a master mechanic. He worked, he was in the Air Force. He was an F-4 crew chief, worked on F-4 Phantom. He was an F-4 Phantom crew chief for during the Vietnam conflict and stationed in Thailand. So he is a Vietnam veteran. And then he came back and he worked for Harley Davidson, he worked for Ford, and then he worked for Six Flags, and ended up working for Six Flags for over 28 years. So my father was a mechanic on roller coasters. So we actually did a little bit of traveling because he worked for a lot of different amusement parks. I went to 11 different schools growing up because of that, lived in 5 different houses. And we transferred from Texas to Colorado. So growing up, I got a lot of different experiences going to 11 different schools. And then I joined the Marine Corps. And then I was in the Marine Corps from 2005 to 2009. I was an artilleryman, and I deployed to Fallujah, Iraq in 2006, out to Qadim, Iraq in 2007. 2008, I was on the all-varsity Marine Corps MMA team for temporary assigned duty orders for a period of 6 months. That was my secondary MOS. That was my job in the Marine Corps, was to represent the Marine Corps as a full-time amateur mixed martial arts fighter. And I fought at the light heavyweight division, 204 pounds. I had a record of 3-3-0. So I had 6 amateur fights, 3 wins, 3 losses, no draws. For the Marine Corps MMA team. So when you think of guys like Tim Kennedy that represented the Army in that capacity, that was kind of my deal with the Marine Corps, but just not as cool as he is. So I did that for a period of 159 days, temporary assigned duty orders, and after I finished those 6 months, I went back to my unit. I could have snagged on for another 6 months if I had re-enlisted, but it just wasn't in the cards for me. So I got out of the Marine Corps 2009. Went back to Colorado, and then I went through a whole slew of jobs. I primarily focused in private security, living off of that Marine Corps resume. So in private security, at least in the state of Texas, you're required to have what's called a guard card. So you have level 2, which is unarmed, level 3, which is armed guard, and the level 4, which is a PPO, which means personal protection officer, which is also known as a bodyguard, except you're licensed by the state of Texas. So that means you can wear plain clothes, you can have your weapon concealed, and you can work in the capacity of a security officer. So I went through all those levels, and once I achieved my level 4 guard card and was a bodyguard for the registered under the state of Texas, I then went back and I was a defensive tactics instructor at a place called Central Texas Gunworks under the owner Mike Cargill for a period of about 18 months, where I would teach the Texas state standards for armed security officers and PPOs, the personal protection officers for the state of Texas. And I just taught them defensive tactics and teaching them unarmed combat. Because they have to go through a certain level, like 8 hours of training before they could receive their certifications. During that time, from the time that I got out of the Marine Corps to about 2016 or so, I was a full-time bouncer for about 10 years. I actually started in 2006 and I ended that career in 2016. So I was a bouncer full-time, and I worked across 3 different states, 4 different cities. And I believe it was a great experience for me. I don't drink alcohol. I don't have the palate for it. I just don't like the taste of it. I don't like the feeling of it. Nothing about alcohol that I like. So I was very good at working in the bar environment. I always was able to keep a clear head, in my opinion, and I made good decisions. So I was able to create an entire career out of that. Working full-time as a bouncer. I did a lot of things on the side, but getting a job as a bouncer was always real easy for me because I'm a very large individual. I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall, and around that time I was 280 to 300 pounds, and I was a power lifter. So it just worked out really well for me and my skill sets. During that time, I continued to train in martial arts. I trained in over 25 different styles of martial arts. It's really weird to tell people that, but over 25 years, 25 to 30 different styles of martial arts, it makes sense. And I actually have a list of every single martial art that I've ever trained in, the name of the instructor, the name of the school, and however many months I was there. So, it just is what it's a crazy resume that I have there. In 2011, I went through a law enforcement academy. I went through the South Plains Association of Governments in Lubbock, Texas. So the SPAG Law Enforcement Academy in 2011. I just thought I would give it a shot. And so I went through 618 hours of law enforcement training. I graduated with my TCLOS certification, which is the Texas Law Enforcement Officer certification. Now it's called TCOL or some other variant of that. And that basically ensures that I could get on as a law enforcement officer for up to 2 years back then. Now it's like 5 years, but my certification was good for up to 2 years. So I received law enforcement training, went to a full-time police academy, graduated. I immediately had a job offer with Plainview Police Department. I turned it down. I wasn't interested in joining law enforcement at that time, and law enforcement at that time was only paying $10 an hour. I could make more money as a security guard at Walmart. So instead, I opted to go to Afghanistan as a private security contractor working for a company called Northrop Grumman. And actually, that's not correct. I was JBM, Johnson Baxter Management, JBM, that was under the Northrop Grumman contract that was for the Department of Defense here in America. So I deployed to Afghanistan as a private security contractor in 2012. I went to Kunar province. I was stationed at Combat Outpost Hanukkah Miracle for a period of about 60 days and saw lots of combat there. We were in 8-hour-long firefights. I was just there as a support element. I was there as a CRAM operator, so a counter rocket artillery mortar operator. So I used radar capabilities to track all the incoming rocket and mortar fire that fired on our friendly positions, and then we would use the point of origin to locate with and destroy any of those enemy targets. So that was a very unique experience. It was very similar to my Iraq experience, except these were 8-hour-long firefights about every other day. And they were basically just, this was like shooting at us like fish in a barrel. It was not super fun, but it was very exciting. I got out of there in 2012. I tried to apply for a few different police departments and sheriff's departments and jails, and I just didn't get in. There was a big hiring freeze under the Obama administration. Nobody was opening up what we would call boat spaces in the Marine Corps. Nobody had job opportunities or job offers or job openings. And I kind of was just burned out. I've been shot at for, so many years, and I've had all this training. I was just burned out. I wanted to have a steady life. I wanted to have a relationship with somebody. I didn't want to deploy. I wanted to have a steady income. I didn't want to go to sleep looking over my shoulder all the time. So I decided to step away and start doing some other things. So I got into welding. I got into woodworking. Locksmithing. I did all that stuff. I wanted to learn how to work with my hands instead of just being a target for somebody to shoot at. So after 3 combat deployments, going through law enforcement training, taking TCCC, tactical combat casualty care training at least a half dozen times, and being a defensive tactics instructor, an amateur MMA fighter, and a bouncer for 10 years, and all this other stuff that I've probably forgotten about and just haven't mentioned yet. That's what builds up to what I carry for every day. And what I carry for every day is very unique and specific to me and my skill sets and my experience. I don't remember if I mentioned this yet, but I live in the state of Texas, so I am very close to the proximity of our southernmost border, and our southern border is that of the Mexican-American border. So here in America, specifically in Texas, we have seen an influx of migrants moving into America, specifically through the Texas, Arizona, and Mexico and California border. And so we've actually seen over 7 million migrants just cross over in the last 3 years. It's quite incredible. My wife is from Mexico. My wife is Zapotec Indian from Oaxaca, Mexico. She immigrated here. We got married. She got a green card. 2 years later, she became an American citizen. So I absolutely love the Mexican culture. I absolutely love for people to have the opportunity to come to America and to be able to experience our freedoms and our way of life and our culture. But during this transitional time, the past 3 years, it's very unstable. It's very unstable. You never know what you're going to walk into or come across, whether you're just driving here in Central Texas, or if I'm driving to San Antonio, which is like 60-minute drive. If I'm driving to Houston, which is 150 miles, so it's a 3-hour drive, you never know what you're going to come across on these roads. You can literally just watch people that are trying to come into America. You witness a lot of human trafficking. There's a lot of sex trafficking that you can witness here. And so you never know what you're going to see. So I'm in a very unique situation where I'm in a border state. So some of my everyday carry needs to be able to cater to the possibility that I may find somebody that's in a desperate situation that either needs my help, or maybe they are needing to commit some type of criminal activity because they're desperate and they need my truck, they need my money, maybe they want something from me, and I have to be able to defend my life and my property. So I live in Texas, and it can get kind of dicey here. Also, the Texan culture is that we love guns. We love the Second Amendment, which gives us the right to own guns. I don't abuse it by any means. I have all the training in the world for carrying my guns, and I don't always carry my gun, but I try to be in the habit to do so that way I can be a solution and not a problem. But by all means, if there's ever a situation, I hope that I never have to commit to trying to be a solution to that problem. I hope I can just rely on the local law enforcement to solve my problems for me. That being said, though, the wait times here in Texas between Houston and Austin, recently that I've lived in both cities in the past 6 years, the wait times for just trying to get somebody to answer the phone when you call 911 is about 5 to 20 minutes. There has been situations where I've had to call 911 while I was living in Houston and nobody even answered the phone. They would just say, call back at another time. When you do get a hold of somebody between 5 and 20 minutes, they're not going to be able to send somebody out for 30 minutes to 90 minutes. So a half hour to an hour and a half. So you're really on your own when it comes to medical and self-defense. So that would help explain some of the stuff that I'm carrying. I think we're about 13 minutes into me just talking about myself. I apologize, but I'm trying to build up to why I carry the crazy stuff that I carry. So let's talk about the first layer. And the first layer of everyday carry is just going to be the clothes that you wear. And you know what? In 2019, I went through a survival school called the Pathfinder Basic Survival Course, which was hosted by the Self-Reliance Outfitters. So that's owned by Dave Canterbury, famous bushcrafter and survivalist. And my instructors were Sean Kelly from Corporal's Corner, Coal Cracker Bushcraft, and the gray bearded Green Beret Josh Inyart. And so I got to learn from all of those guys. And also Black Hat Survival was there as well, and a few others. So I went through that survival school, and one of the cool things that they teach you there is that there's no such thing as bad weather. There's just bad clothing choices. So that's why I really love the Covert Instruments version of the Triple Aught Design. So this is Triple Aught Design soft shell hoodie, and Covert Instruments did a limited run with their embroidery right here, and I was able to purchase one of the very last ones. I'm sorry that I'm mentioning a product that's just limited use, but having a soft shell jacket that can fluctuate between like 40 or 50 degrees of temperature is really awesome, especially in Texas. Layering is really important. So I can wear this thing all the way up to like 75 or 80 degrees, and I can wear it down all the way to about 32 degrees, or 0 degrees Celsius. So I'm very comfortable in a soft shell hoodie, and I love all the different stash pockets that this has. So that's my first layer of my everyday carry, is the clothing choices. And that's really gonna dictate what I wear on a regular basis. But everything that I'm gonna show you here is gonna fit whether I'm in the summer or the winter environment. Right now it's March, so I'm still got another month that I can wear this thing. And then it's going in the closet for like 5 or 6 months. So let me go ahead and strip this guy off. But before I do, I have these little side pockets here that I like to take some of my everyday carry items, such as my Chris Dangerfield lockpick kit right here, in case I need to get out of something or get into something. I can just slip that right here, and it's so lightweight and it's so slim that it just disappears into that pocket. It's one of my favorite everyday carry items. I do keep, obviously, my slim pickings on a keychain sometimes, or sometimes all the time I'll have my covert companion on me, and sometimes I play around with my tough possum gear, which is also Southern Specialties gears that I slip into my front pocket. But at all times, I like to keep this guy in that little side pocket right there. So we'll just keep that right there. So honestly, in the state of Texas, it gets so warm here and so hot that Texas averages about 101 to 107 degrees for about 2 months. So about 60, anywhere between 60 to like 90 days. And I can say that with some certainty and some confidence, because I had my own lawn mowing business for the last 3 years. And this was my, last year was my last season of mowing lawns. The season ranges from late February all the way into late December. So there's about 2 months there. I would say, or November, I would say December and January, I don't mow lawns in Texas, but February through November, you can still find yourself mowing lawns. And I found myself mowing lawns in an environment where it was 105, 107 degrees, not including the heat index. So heat index is the actual heat based off of the environment around you, where that takes into account the humidity conditions. So Texas usually has like an 80% humidity, which is ridiculous. It takes into account that if you are standing on concrete or surrounded by concrete or in between houses, which are made of concrete, that's going to build up heat all around you. It's just, if you're around vehicles or motors or generators that are producing heat, that's going to raise a heat index as well. So just being on a road or on a rooftop or anything where you're working in construction, that heat index actually goes up another 20, like anywhere between 15 to like 30 degrees on top of what the temperature is outside. So moral of the story is, I'm always going to be in a t-shirt, and I'm always going to be in basketball shorts. I'm always being comfortable. I used to wear chanclas, as we call them here in Texas, or sandals or flip-flops, but now I'm moving into actual shoes that I can tie in case I need to run because of an emergency. So I no longer wear sandals due to the heat, but I'm always wearing a t-shirt and shorts. You're really not going to see a lot of Texans wearing blue jeans and cowboy boots in the summer, at least in the cities and the suburbs. You still see a lot of them doing that in West Texas, where it's very dusty and a lot of dirt, and they work on ranches and farms. But I live in the suburbs, so my attire is going to really kind of fit the culture of the suburbs and the city of Austin. So that being said, I don't have a lot of ability to be able to just pack my pockets full, and I don't have the ability to wear a gun belt to be able to appendix carry or to carry at my what would be called 3 o'clock position, or even a kidney carry. I'm wearing basketball shorts. So what is the solution to that? My solution is, and we're 17, 18 minutes into this, I apologize, but I use a cross body bag. So this is called an off body carry. So this is what I carry every single day for my pistol options and for anything that I need. This is like a go bag. The reason why I do this is because when I travel, when I go to Houston, when I go to San Antonio, when I travel across the United States, which I do often, when I go to Mexico with my wife, I always have a sling bag, an off-body carry bag that I carry everything that I need as a tourist and as someone enjoying myself. And I started to realize, why don't I just do this every single day? It just makes too much sense. So I was playing around with that idea, and then watching what happened in Gaza, where the government sent 3,000 terrorists to go attack the citizens of the Gaza Strip. And, so many people were hurt on October 7th of 2023. I decided I needed to make my everyday carry solution more permanent, because me living in the proximity of the border and them catching terrorists on a daily basis, people that are on the terrorist watch list, I believe that the cities within Austin could potentially, be in such of a similar risk as Gaza was to the terrorists that attacked them on that day. So I'm in a very unique situation where I'm watching the world unfold around me, and I'm an experienced combat veteran. I fought in 2 foreign wars. I have 3 combat deployments, and I'm like, if I have the skill set and the means to be able to carry this stuff, then maybe I should. So that's what I do. I try to be a part of the solution, not the problem. So, however, before I get into this guy, my immediate on-body carry are 3 things. The first thing is going to be my extendable baton by Asp right here, and it's I can collapse it without having to slam it on the ground. It has an aluminum body construction with a steel tip and a rubber impact point right here. So that way, the great thing about having a baton like this is sometimes I'm in an environment where I'm going to be visiting family members or friends that may have children in the home. So I will just leave my everyday carry, at my house. I'm not going to take my gun with me everywhere I go. I still employ some common sense, because I don't want to set this down, and I never set it down. I always wear it at all times, but I don't want to be in an environment where I may feel compelled to set this down, and then somebody, has some loose fingers and may decide to fidget with my bag. That's step 1. I train in a lot of martial arts. I may decide to go train in some kickboxing or Muay Thai or go to the jiu-jitsu gym. I do not typically take my gun with me, because I don't want to leave the gun in the locker room under some bench while I'm training, because I don't want some kid to run in there, and start fumbling through some stuff, so I have to be smart with the off-body stuff. I would rather leave it in my vehicle, but I don't like doing that either. So if I can't have this on me at all times, I don't carry a gun at all, so I carry a baton. That's number 1. Number 2 is I love having a baton because this is a non-lethal item. I'm sure I could make this a lethal item if I wanted to, but for the most part, if I'm striking someone in that perennial nerve from their hip all the way down to their ankle or their knee, if I'm striking just on those nerves, or I'm just hitting them in the arm or something like that, this is a non-lethal item. And in Austin, we do see a lot of instances of homelessness and a lot of crime here. And so I want to have the ability to just stop a threat, not eliminate a threat. I want to be able to stop a threat so I can just move on with my life. So I do like having the option of having an escalation of force within my own everyday carry options. So having a baton is super great for when you're in family environments, you have kids, or if you're going to an environment where you're not going to be able to keep an eye on your weapon at all times, then just carry a baton. That solves all the problems. The second thing I carry is a flashlight. This is my Surefire flashlight, stupid bright. This is the E2D LED Defender Ultra. Say that 5 times as fast as you can. And it has those sharp teeth type bezels here on front and back. So I can use this as a blunt force trauma item for self-defense, but primarily you just don't want to get caught in the dark in Texas. Texas is ginormous. And if you just step 10 miles outside of any city, it is nearly pitch black out here. You are in the country, you are in the sticks. So having this on me at all times just makes sense. Not only can I use this as a backup for defending myself and for paying compliance possibly if I needed to handle somebody, but honestly, I just want to have a flashlight on me at all times. That's not just my cell phone. I don't want to burn out the battery on my cell phone trying to walk through some woods. So having this is super key and clutch in my opinion. And then last but not least, I almost always will have a lethal option on my person at all times. So if the baton fails and I'm not able to get them back with this, it's good to have a cutting tool on you. Honestly, I just use this as almost like a multi-tool. I'm cutting boxes open with this. I cut zip ties, whenever I'm doing lawn mowing or something like that. Sometimes products I have that I have to hold together are held with zip ties. I'm going to use my switchblade here, and this is just a really great carry option. This thing's super lightweight and super thin. I actually keep it tucked in an appendix carry into my pants. my shorts, excuse me, my basketball shorts. So this guy has an aluminum body, this guy has an aluminum body, and this has an aluminum body. Everything here is super lightweight and probably weighs less than a pound if I were to put all three together. Super lightweight. So this goes in my right pocket, this goes in my left pocket. This is an appendix carry right here, and that's what I have on me at all times. I will always also have my cell phone on me, but now that I'm carrying my bag, my wallet, my keys, everything actually goes into my bag. And the reason why I do that is because if you put something important in your bag that keeps you from getting far without it, you're less likely to leave the bag behind. So by keeping my car keys in my bag and keeping my wallet in my bag, I can't jump into my car and drive off. I don't take the bag off of me. Even when I sit down to use the restroom, I just sling the bag in front of me. I keep some nice wet wipes in there because, hey, if you're a veteran, you know that's the best way to stay clean out in the field when you're using the restroom. But I just sling that bag in front of me. It never comes off. When I sit in my truck, I sling that bag in front of me and it never comes off. On long road trips when I'm traveling for like 3 hours, I take that bag off, I put it next to me in arm's reach, but I don't even like that because if I get in a car accident, I'm not gonna be able to reach it. However, behind the headrest of my vehicle, my seat in my truck is going to be another IFAK, an individual first aid kit with tourniquet and my Israeli dressing and chest seals and all that other stuff. So it's still reachable if I need to help myself. So I don't feel too bad about that. But keeping important items in your off-body carry will ensure that you're less likely to get you're not gonna just forget it in some random place. I forget the word, but anyways, so now we can move into that. So let's talk about my everyday carry here. So I like to wear my sling bag right here over my left shoulder here and just across my chest, and it's super comfortable. It makes my muscles pop. Just kidding, I don't have any muscles. And if I need it, whether I'm trying to just access my wallet or my keys, or God forbid, in an emergency situation, I need to access my gun, I can just sling it around right here. I put an orange tab right here so I can see this in the excitement of things, and I can dive into whatever I need. So let's go ahead and just talk about my pistol carry options. So I rip this open, I dive in, and then I have my pistol. I never carry around in the chamber because this is an off-body carry. I don't want somebody to accidentally pick up my gun and then try to fumble it and then shoot themselves or somebody else with it. So I just carry what's called a condition 4 in the Marine Corps. I don't carry it in condition 1 as a round in a chamber, especially this being a striker fired pistol with no safety. It just doesn't make sense to me. There's a built-in safety in the trigger. There's no need to carry a round in a chamber. I can just Israeli draw and then line in on my target. So everything fits right there. So the ability to be able to sit in my vehicle and drive and have a seatbelt on me. And then if I get into an accident, I can still have the benefits of an airbag. But if I get into a confrontation or road rage, which is quite common here in Texas, and somebody gets out of their vehicle in front of me and tries to approach me, I can tackle that issue just fine right here, and I can approach my threat. So that's the benefit of this particular type of carry versus if I was appendix carry, or I was at the 3 o'clock position, or I was a kidney carry here back at the 5 o'clock position or 6 o'clock position, and I'm sitting down and I have a seatbelt going across my lap, I'm gonna have a hell of a time trying to get to my different carry options, in my opinion. This is just what works for me. I really like this option. So the great thing about this is when I dress for church and I put on a suit, I can take this bag with me, though I typically just carry this guy because I'm wearing a suit, I'm in a church environment. But this can go in any type of a clothing attire that I wear. I no longer have to decide what type of weapons for self-defense or individual first aid kit or everyday carry items, depending on what I wear. No matter what I wear, this guy fits with everything that I wear. So my Glock 43 goes with me everywhere I go, and I don't keep it loaded at all. The second thing that I have in here is I'm going to be carrying multiple magazines. So I have a full magazine in there, and then I carry 2 more magazines right here. And one is a little bit easier to get to than the other, but believe it or not, in combat situations, there is no such thing as a fast reload. You're going to get to cover concealment, and you're going to index what you're loading into your magazine well, and you're going to try to make sure that you refill your magazine capacity efficiently, not quickly. So I'm sorry, I'm stumbling on words here, but basically I'm not gonna do a tactical reload in the middle of a firefight. Instead, I'm gonna be like, oh crap, this was terrible. And then, just try to work through it in a safe and effective manner. So that way I don't have a failure to feed or a misfire or anything like that. Just having extra magazines that are accessible, 2 is 1, 1 is none, but in this particular case, I carry 3 8-round magazines. The next thing that I have right here is an Israeli bandage, a compressed Israeli bandage, 4 inches. I've actually used that. I was driving to jiu-jitsu and I was wearing a fanny pack with my everyday carry, and I witnessed a very terrible car accident. And so I was the first person on scene, got out of my vehicle in the middle of an intersection, walked up to the vehicle, and the whole family was completely incapacitated. There was a mother and father in the front. There was 2 teenage daughters in the back, and then there was a baby. Everybody was completely passed out, knocked out from this car accident, and all the airbags had exploded and all the doors were locked. So I walked around to the side of the vehicle to where one of the windows was completely broken open, and the mother was hanging out the window, and her elbow had broken through the window during the car accident, and the window completely flayed her arm open, exposing everything underneath the skin. And she was completely passed out. So the first thing that I did was I went to my truck, forgetting that I had my IFAK on me, on my waist, but I went to my truck, grabbed the first aid kit, grabbed my Israeli bandage, and I was able to put together the flap of skin that was filleted open on her elbow and put that Israeli bandage on. And then I stood by her and kept her calm because nobody could get the doors open, especially on the side that got T-boned. So we had to wait for the jaws of life to come to get them open. And everybody that was slowly waking up was in shock. And I was half expecting to see some dead children. But luckily the children were just incapacitated at that point in time. So believe it or not, everything in here does have a use, and I have had to use some of this stuff in some capacity in some way. So being able to have access to is an Israeli bandage, which is just a compression dressing. I didn't need a tourniquet or anything crazy like that. I just needed to be able to close the wound temporarily, put pressure on it to stop the bleeding, and I needed to be able to calm this woman who was having a very severe panic attack as she was in shock, because the last thing she was remembering was eating some McDonald's as her husband's driving. Then they got T-bone, now she's waking up and she's in a lot of pain. And so once the first responders show up, I just let them do the thing, and I went on to jiu-jitsu, and I had blood on my gi or something. I don't remember what I was wearing, but I had a little bit of blood on me at that time. So that was wild. So I do come across these situations where I do need this stuff. That being said, the next thing right here is going to be a tourniquet. The ability to have a tourniquet is clutch in any survival or emergency situation. You can bleed out within just a couple of minutes if you have an injury to a major extremity, such as your arms or your legs. Understanding the difference between the use of a tourniquet and a pressure dressing and extremities such as arms and legs and junctional, I think they're called, areas such as the shoulders where you can't put a tourniquet on, or the body, the head, the neck, and the torso where you can't put a tourniquet on, but instead you're using, like the gauze that you use to wound packing, you're packing the wound, or you're using a pressure dressing is very important to addressing the situation. I'm sorry, I'm trying to sound intelligent, and I've been talking for 30 minutes straight instead. The next thing I carry is my LTC. Don't even remember what this thing stands for, but it's just an IFAK, an individual first aid kit. Having this in here. I have some gloves, but gloves are not really needed. This was popular thing for about 30 years, and now we're realizing that our skin is actually a really great barrier for blood diseases. As long as you don't have any open wounds on your hands or your arms, you're not really exposed to blood-borne pathogens or blood diseases that may be in the blood. So I'm not exposed to helping somebody that has AIDS if I don't have open wounds on my hands. But these are still an option if I do have to deal with someone that is, let's say, transient, or someone that may be homeless and not have accessibility to healthcare or modern medicine. putting on gloves is not gonna hurt, and it just kind of gets you through that icky factor. It also gives you, the latex here may help a little bit with situations where somebody is perspiring, very sweaty, and you need to put hands on them, or if they're just covered in blood. This super helps, you know. So having that, I actually have another spare in here. I have quick clot in here for filling holes, which is really not, I wouldn't suggest everybody carry a quick clot, because if you use this and you don't understand what it does to a wound, when you fill a wound with quick clot and then apply a tourniquet or a pressure dressing and a tourniquet, the doctors have to go in and they have to carve and scrape out and dig out all of this material. So this is really just for like gunshot wounds and various things like that, where you cannot stop the bleeding and it is so deep. So like upper thigh area or something like that, I would use quick clot. I have chest seals here, and I also have some spare full-size chest seals here as well. Chest seal is for if you have actual punctures to the lung, so you took shots or maybe a knife wound to your lungs in your chest or in your abdominal area. A chest seal front and back is going to help seal that, so that way I can still maintain the ability to just breathe. A couple other things in here, just like, I think I have just like my boo-boo kit in here, like just some Band-Aids and some stuff like that. And then I have my S-gauze, my compressed gauze, that's like 70 feet long, compressed in size, so that way I can wound pack if I have any areas, you know, these junctured areas where just putting a tourniquet is not, you're not able to put a tourniquet on, and it's not, you're not going to benefit from just putting a pressure dressing on, because it's a deep wound and you probably hit an artery. So we got some wound packing abilities right there. So that individual first aid kit is a really great option to have, and that just covers everything in my main compartment. My secondary compartment, which is just stuff I enjoy for everyday needs, is going to be my keys, which I'm not going to show on camera here because a lot of internet sleuths like to be able to look at keys and decode them. But I obviously have my car fob and I have my keys, but I have a new addition to my keychain, which is going to be another flashlight, and this is going to be on my keychain. And all you have to do is disconnect this thing and it immediately turns on by itself, and it's magnetic and sits right back in. I had the old flashlight that you had to turn on, and then you were trying to use the key and the flashlight at the exact same time. That was annoying. So instead, this guy completely disconnects from my keys, so I can use two hands instead of just one hand to operate the flashlight and the keys. I really love that. That's the iMini 2 by Olight. So those are just my keys. I used to keep my my covert instruments, slim pickings, on my keychain, but now that I carry the covert companion in this bag, there was no need for it. It may go back on these because I don't always have my bag on me all the times. So we'll see. We'll see. I just don't like having big bulky keys in my pocket when I go to church and I'm wearing suit pants. The next thing that I guess we'll talk about here is just the organization of all this and what it is all for. So I like to carry pepper spray, or a pepper gel rather, because Texas is very windy. Use pepper spray, you're going to get hit with it too, but a pepper gel is going to reduce the instance of you getting hit with your own spray. I carry this specifically as a non-lethal way of a limit or to stopping a threat of somebody that may just have a mental illness. There's so much transient and homeless people in Austin. Just, you know, some of these people are just on drugs. I was a bouncer for 10 years. I was a bouncer on 6th Street for 4 years, from 2012 to 2016. And I don't want to feel like I have to put my hands on somebody to stop the threat, because that's going to cause problems. I don't want to get close to somebody. There's a lot of diseases in people's mouths, and you try to go punch them or you try to get hands on them. I don't want to have to just resort to just physical violence and trying to stop the threat when they have mental illness or they're on drugs. Just spritzing some of this in somebody's eye is absolutely a really great option in trying to stop that threat, at least momentarily, so you can turn around and get out of that situation. I always wondered what would be the best object to carry, and I really think that mace pepper spray goes a really long way with handling all types of situations without murdering or killing somebody or taking somebody's life. That is going to be the ultimate result of trying to eliminate a threat with a gun. So I'm a big fan of carrying a gun, but have other less lethal options, in my opinion, and I think this is a great option. So that's first and foremost. I do like to have a cutting tool that is off-body, but it's going to be a multi-tool, so a combination tool such as a Leatherman. That's going to be super key. I do love my Covert Companion because I can bypass as well as single pin pick because I have the Riv pick in here, and I actually have a secret upgraded tool in here that I'm not going to talk about right now, but there's a secret tool in here that has been released, and I'll talk about that at a future date. And then I like to have the ability to create fire, especially in winter. You don't know what's going to happen when you're traveling 150 miles across the state of Texas once every couple months. So the ability just to create a quick fire, just what they call flick the bick. Nothing too exciting. I can light this guy 100% of the time, every time, whereas a fire striker requires dry conditions and requires good fire steel. And you have to acquire, to have like a little bird's nest of kindling and all that stuff. A tinder bundle. So this just eliminates a lot of that problem. So having a lighter. Also, I have another flashlight. So I actually have 3 flashlights on me, and I have the Olight arc-filled UV. So I don't use the UV, but if I was a bouncer, using the UV is a great way of discerning whether somebody's driver's license or passport is authentic, because they have the properties inside those driver's licenses. When hit with a UV, you can see little secret symbols inside of those driver's license. If you're unaware of that, take out a UV flashlight, shine it on your ID, and you'll see all different types of secret hidden stuff on your identification, which is pretty cool. And obviously, because I may be out for a while, I want to have the ability to charge my electronics. So the ability to charge that Olight flashlight right here, and I think that's the only electronic that I have there. A phone charger and something else. The ability to charge your electronics right there, that Olight flashlight specifically is right there. And then I also have a power bank right here. So this power bank actually has USB Type-C, and it also has a lightning cable ability. And then I can also charge this just through USB. So I can use this for charging my phone. I can get one good full charge, actually 50% charge on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but I can charge all of my other electronics with this. Moving into one of the last pouches here. So I like to have a notebook and I like to have a pen, because just because I have a cell phone doesn't mean I'll always be able to use my cell phone. If I need to make a note and leave it somewhere, maybe I need to leave a note on somebody's vehicle. Maybe I hit somebody's vehicle, I'm in an emergency situation, and I gotta get going. I wanna leave a note, whatever, this is great. I started carrying a notepad because while I was in the Marine Corps and we were in a Desert Fire X training, so I was in 29 Palms, Mojave Desert for a period of 5 weeks doing field training. There's a story of a Marine that got separated from his unit. His unit actually left him in 29 Palms. This was back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And then they got home on Monday. The armory did a weapons check and realized they're missing a weapon. And then after 3 days, they realized, oh, we're missing Joe Schmuckatelli over here. And so they go back to 29 Palms and they never found the guy. They found his remains over 15 years or 20 years later, and they were able to find it because a search and rescue team decided to take on old cold case files and as a way of practicing search and rescue missions. And they decided to pursue Joe Schmuckatelli, whatever his name was, who got lost in the Mojave Desert during some Marine Corps fire training. And they started finding these Right in the Rain pieces of paper, I believe it was. I don't know if they've been around that long, but they started finding these durable wax-covered pieces of paper where he was leaving notes after 20 years. They were stuck to these like yucca plants and stuff. So they found these notes and they were able to find the remnants of a tarp or a tent, and they found his skeletal remains. And so the ability to just leave a note behind wherever you've been or where you're going, what your plans are, or I'm sorry, I'm the guy that hit your vehicle, here's my insurance information, I gotta go, my wife is in labor, whatever. The ability to take notes is super important. Also, if I was to get into a situation where I have to defend myself with my weapon, and I have to take somebody's life, or if I get into a physical altercation, maybe I want to take some notes of the event while it's fresh in my mind, but I don't want to put those notes in my phone, because then that phone could be considered evidence. So maybe I want to take the notes on a piece of paper instead. This is an old law enforcement trick. If I was in law enforcement and I'm taking notes on my phone or taking pictures with my phone, and then I have to go to court, my phone has to be submitted for evidence, and I'm not going to be able to get that phone back. So the ability to take notes in a notebook that can be submitted for evidence is super critical in a emergency situation. So having that here is great. And I like to have multi-use tools. So if I'm gonna have a pen, you might as well have a self-defense pen. And this, I believe, is this is the Boker pen. So the ability to be able to defend yourself, I hope that would be a terrible day that you have to defend yourself with a pen. I'm not John Wick and I'm not Jason Bourne, so that would suck. But I might as well make it a good pen, and that's what I went with that. So the next, last but not least, I do like to carry a handkerchief, and which apparently I took it out to use. And I like to have, because I wear glasses, I need to have something to clean my glasses with. A shirt just doesn't cut it. All it does is smear. So having something to clean my glasses and a handkerchief, you'll never catch me without a handkerchief, except for now, apparently. I guess for some reason I don't have a handkerchief in here. And I like to carry a travel size wet wipes. This is really great because whenever I travel to Mexico, I go to a lot of places that don't have toilet paper, or you are paying for toilet paper and they give you 3 little pieces. And me being an American living in excess, I'm not comfortable with that. Just carry my own wet wipes. And this is a habit that I brought in from the Marines. We go out to the field. We would discern that I would have to use the restroom maybe 1 to 2 times a day. And I would use maybe 3 wet wipes for each time. And then at the end of the day, I'd have to clean myself. I'd use 1 wet wipe for my face, 1 for my armpits, and then 1 for my body and in between my legs. So that's 3 wet wipes for bathing, and then that was 3 to 6 wet wipes for going to the restroom. You can calculate that out to be about 5 to 10 wet wipes per day. If I'm going to the field for 5 weeks, I know exactly how many wet wipes I need to take with me to the field for hygienic purposes. Therefore, it's in my nature to carry these wet wipes right here. So there's 16 in here. This is enough for going out for, like 4 or 5 different trips if I'm having to use the restroom while I'm out. Also, if you guys travel a little bit, if you guys been around the world, you know that restrooms are not the cleanest, and I don't want to bring something from the restroom, some weird pathogen or disease, and bring it into my home and bring it into my bedroom or something, and pass it on to my wife, or something like that. That is a possibility. So the ability to be able to disinfect and clean the environment or a toilet, because I am a North American, I don't squat when I use the restroom. I like to sit down. The ability to clean that space is super important. I know that's super graphic, but hey, this is life and this is the world we live in. So as a North American, I want to be able to clean the space that I'm living in. I want to be able to clean me and feel fresh and so clean. So last but not least is the front pocket. The only thing I keep in my front pocket is just my wallet. My wallet is a pocket within a pocket. So I do not like having a wallet where I open it up and things can just fall out. Wallets are really great for like 1 year, and then they get worn out and things start falling out. Important things like your ID or your credit card or your debit card or your insurance card or your medical ID or something like that. So I carry this thing. I don't remember the company. Maybe it's Alpaca Gear or something like that. I don't remember the company that makes this. If it's Chrome Industries or Alpaca, one of the two. But the ability to have non-essential cards here, and then the ability to have my essential cards right here. So my debit cards and my gas card, and maybe like an identification or something for quick access is super clutch. And this thing is cut resistant, tear resistant, and pretty much water resistant as well. And I love that it's high visibility. Everything, I love to buy things that are flat dark earth, and I like the tactical stuff too, but this guy just, the ability to be able to recognize your wallet in a dark room is super important to me. I just spit all over my gear. Super important to me and super beneficial. So I really like that. And especially since it's just hidden, in that little front pocket right here. So I'll try to add a link to some of these products in the description down below. I'm definitely going to add a link to this bag. This is a Victos, I think it's called, Victos bag. I'll have to look it up. I'm in a weird position. Victos. Everyday carry bag, and on the inside of that main compartment is going to be all Velcro, or as people like to argue, it's hook and loop, Sandman, whatever. It's Velcro. I was born in 1984. Everything was Velcro. I don't care if it's trademarked. So the ability to have a holster in here, magazine holster in here, and everything else. is going to keep everything nice and tight. And then I can just sling it back on my bag as I walk into a grocery store or something like that. It is overkill. It is a lot of stuff, but because of my skill set and my training, it would be such a shame to walk into an environment where my skills may be beneficial, may be healing, may be needed, and not to be able to have the tools at my disposal. Case in point, there was a shooting, I think in 2017 in Las Vegas, where more than 60 people died and many people were injured. It was at a country music concert, and there was a gentleman up in the skyscraper with multiple weapons pointing at the people with bump stocks attached to the weapon. So he just pulled the trigger and they just unloaded, 100 rounds each, and then he would just reload. So a lot of people died in a quick fashion. There were a lot of people that were in the concert, probably because they couldn't bring weapons into a concert, and they wouldn't have been able to do anything anyways because this was from an elevated position, but people didn't know where the shots were coming from. So there's a video of Dan, I think his name's Dan, not Bazillion or Brazilian, but there's a video of this guy that's like famous on social media, and he lives his life based off of how he went through Hell Week, 3 times, and he went through Buds so many times, but never actually made it to the SEALs. He was in the Navy for 8 or 12 years and eventually just kind of flushed out. But he lives off of these life stories. Well, there's a video of him in a life-threatening situation, and he's running to his car like everybody else. His excuse was after the fact that he was running to his car to go get a rifle so he could assist first responders. But someone I look up to, Chordettes, who is he's a Purple Heart, and he's the world's highest, America's highest honor, Medal of Honor recipient. He called him out on it. He goes, "This is what I hate about veteran frauds." He goes, "You guys talk a real tough game, and then when the time comes, you just run like everybody else instead of running in to help people." And Dan Bilzerian, I think that's his name. I'm screwing that name up, but he was like, "Well, I was trying to go do this." He goes, and then Dakota was like, "Bullshit. You could have helped anybody around you that had fallen and hurt themselves or that were injured. You could have done anything, but you chose to flee." So I'm doing my best to try to just be a part of the solution every single day in the best that I can, in the capacity that I am aware of and know how in my training, without getting in the way of actual first responders and law enforcement, paramedic, what have you. I am not a first responder, but there may come a time that I am the first person to respond. And if I'm going to be the first person to respond, I need to be prepared with equipment. I need to be mentally ready and capable. I need to be physically ready and capable. And it's just going to be a very sucky day. And I would rather be in that situation with all the tools that I know how to implement, but may not have needed to use it up to this point, and have them at my disposal, than not have them at my disposal and wish, man, I have all this training and I didn't even have this on me. I have all of these weapons training. I didn't have a weapon on me to stop this particular threat. I have all this medical training on me, and I didn't have just a tourniquet on me to save my wife's life, or a bystander's life, or even a person that I get in a conflict with. I couldn't even save their life after I stopped the threat. So living with those actions, fortunately for me, having been through 3 combat deployments, living with actions is not the easiest thing in the world. Even when you do your best, sometimes you may still fail. So having all of this on me, this thing weighs 5 to 7 pounds. It's not a big deal. That's how much a rifle weighs, and I carried my rifle every day with me in my deployments. And my rifle actually weighed 15 pounds because I had a M16 A4 service rifle with an M203 grenade launcher attached to it, and a magazine attached to the buttstock, and a spare magazine in my pocket if I wasn't going to have my IFAK on me with another 6 magazines. So my weapon platform weighed 15 pounds just by itself with 1 magazine. And it went with me everywhere I went. When Marines eat at a chow hall, our weapon is actually against our body, in between our legs. and we eat over our weapon, whereas other service members will take their weapon off and put it on the ground. Marines don't do that. When we take a shower, if we're not showering with our weapon on us, then we will hang the weapon just outside our shower stall, and we will have one Marine watching while we take, watching the weapon, not us, while we take a shower, whereas other service members will leave their weapon back at their hooch, and then they go and they take a shower, or they leave their weapon hanging by the door for any contractor or local to just grab their weapon and run off. I don't do that. Therefore, having the experience of being in a combat environment and theater of war has made me very comfortable with the idea of carrying an everyday carry bag that has my everyday life necessities that has of the similar weight and design, 7 pounds. I carried that weapon so much that after 15 years of having been out of the Marine Corps, almost 20 years now since I carried that weapon in 2006, I remember that my rifle serial number was 10128403, and I never left that rifle anywhere. One time I put my rifle on my rack and I laid down to take a nap. I got up and I walked out of my hooch to go to the chow hall, and I looked down and I didn't have my rifle on me. I immediately freaked out. And I was worried that I had left it somewhere else that I had been to prior to coming back to my hooch in Fallujah, Iraq. So I went into my room to go grab the rest of my kit before I start scouring Fallujah for my rifle. And I touched the bed and my rifle was on my bed. And I just had that, oh my gosh. And I'll never forget the moment that I feared having lost my rifle. It is the worst thing that will ever happen to a Marine outside of death or losing your friends and your loved ones in front of you. Losing a rifle is terrifying because it ruins your whole career. You lose your inability to protect yourself and your brothers and your teammates, but it's the worst thing you can do. I feel that I have of the right mindset to be able to carry this off-body carry with me and not leave it, but I'm not perfect. So I may add an air tag to this bag, the ability to be able to track this bag should I accidentally set this down, or should somebody take the bag from me, or if I am dumb enough to leave the bag in an environment and somebody swipe it from me and then they go off. Because sometimes when I go to a restaurant, I don't eat with the bag in front of me at all times. Sometimes I do, sometimes I'll take it off and put it next to me. If I'm dumb enough to let somebody get close to me and take that bag, I want to be able to track that bag. So putting an air tag in here while disabling the sound button in it, so that way it doesn't notify somebody that the air tag is within proximity of their iPhone, but gives me the ability to track my bag. That's probably going to be the next logical step. But obviously, I still want to have the option of carrying a weapon on my person and carrying things. If I do get to where I carry my weapon on my body and I'm in an environment where I can wear pants and I can wear boots and I can wear a thick cotton shirt and it's not 110 degrees out, then I'm going to absolutely put my covert instruments, slim pickings, on my keys. Some other options for everyday carry that I would like to recommend for entry kit, because it does come in handy, is the Swick. I'll provide a link down below for that. It's a jackknife tool, though I do prefer the covert instruments covert companion inside my bag because it just does so much more. I would like to recommend the Tough Possum gear, which is basically like 3 different jackknives and a card for slipping latches, also called lloyding. This is a great option, and this is from Tough Possum gear, and the tools are made by Southern Specialties. Also, I really like the Lockmaster jackknife, made of 1095 high carbon steel. Because of that, it's probably going to rust over time if I put it in my pocket, being a 1095 high carbon, but if I put it into a bag, I don't have to really worry about that as much. So that's a really great option too. But other than that, I really think it just doesn't get much better than my Slim Pickens, because it's a lock pick that expands into what's called the Riv pick. I've had to help both of my neighbors on each side of me, my neighbor to the right of me, my neighbor to the left, get into their houses. I've had neighbors across the street ask me to help them get into their vehicles because I've worked for Papa Lock. I have all those tools. So I do absolutely use lock picking on as a part of my everyday carry, not on an everyday basis, but at least once or twice a year, I'm having to get people into vehicles. And I'd say once every 2 years, I'm having to get people into their homes. And sometimes I could be on a trail and there may be, I don't know, there may be an obstruction or a gate or something keeping me from getting to my objective, and there's a lock on a gate unlawfully, and I may be in a position where I could possibly remove the lock that is on this obstacle, what have you. It's just better to have the skill set and be prepared than have the skill set and not be prepared. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of ignorance. If I don't know how to do a specific skill set and I don't have the tool to employ it, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not beneficial to me to carry a tool that I don't know how to use. However, stupidity is using a tool incorrectly. Just because a homeless person walks up on me and I don't like the way they smell and I don't like the proximity of how close they are getting and I feel threatened doesn't mean I should pull out my gun and just eliminate what I perceive as a threat. Having some common sense, having some training, having composure under a stressful situation, I might be able to just use my words and just say, hey man, please get away from me. And as I try to turn around and walk away and they're pursuing me, maybe my pepper spray is an option if I have that on me. And if that's not an option, maybe I can just strike them to the leg to kind of disable their ability to continue to run after me before having to resort to the ability of taking somebody's life or limb. So having skill sets and having the tools based off of those skill sets, I think is what makes a really great everyday carry option. That's it. We're hitting an hour exactly now. So let me know in the comments down below. I know this was very long-winded, but I had a lot to say. What are some of your everyday carry options based on your previous life experiences and your training? There's a lot of really neat everyday carry options that I could suggest, like a baton or a flashlight or a Leatherman. But if you haven't been in a situation where you had low light visibility, or that you needed less lethal options, I'm kind of curious as to why people carry these options. Is it just out of fear or because you watch somebody else carry it? Instead, I would like to ask, what do you carry that's unique to you and your background? I used to not carry specifically the Surefire brand. In 2006, I was walking from my hooch where I lived on Camp Fallujah to the very edge of this air base. It was a forward operating base to where our pause was, which is a position. And so being that I was a counter battery radar operator, CRAM, we were positioned on the border of what we call the wire, the edge of our perimeter. And we're actually on the outside of where normal troops were allowed to go, because we're on the other side of a UXO, an unexploded ordnance area, where they kept the Iraqi police, and they would train and they'd live there. So we lived in those areas with them, and that whole area was, for lack of a better term, segregated or separated from the rest of the base community for security reasons. So I always had my M16 on me. I always had at least condition 4, if not condition 1, where a round was in the chamber. Even though I was on base, we were in this very unique environment. But I always had a flashlight on me, and I had the night shift from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. 7 days a week for 6 months. So I'd have to walk to work starting at midnight. I'd walk however many miles it was across this forward operating base. It was huge. And it would take me about 45 minutes, and I'd walk this, and we had wild dogs and coyotes that would follow us in the dark. And I remember one time I was walking, I kept hearing something behind me, and I'd stop and the sound would stop. So I keep walking and I kept hearing something. So I finally turned around and I took my Surefire flashlight and I did this. And I saw 20 sets of eyes light up of this pack of animals that were tracking me across the desert to my position. And because it was several hundred yards, like a good quarter mile of just open desert in the UXO area, the unexploded ordnance area, that these wild animals were scavenging and were tracking me as I'm walking across. And I hit my Surefire flashlight and I saw these eyes and my Surefire died. So having these CR123 batteries will not slowly dim the bulb to let you know that the batteries need to be replaced. Instead, they'll just cut off after 4 hours worth of use. So I was never a fan of these style of flashlights. I've always preferred to use lithium ion or lithium batteries instead, like Duracell or Energizer. So I use Phoenix, or I used Streamlight flashlights. But now with the invention of rechargeable batteries and rechargeable flashlights, I can just use this 1 or 2 times, come home and recharge that sucker back up. So, but I was never a fan of these CR123 proprietary batteries for Surefire because it died on me at the moment that I needed it the most. Needless to say, I saw those eyes light up in the desert and I was like, shit. And so I just grabbed my gear and I just started hoofing it as fast as I could towards my position, which was only like another 100 yards. And I went back in the middle of the day. My shift ended at 10. I finished doing my forced physical labor for filling sandbags and digging ditches for 4 hours. So I go to walk back so I can get something to eat at the chow hall, and I'm looking, and it's just dozens and dozens to hundreds of paw prints all around, and you see this Marine Corps boot, you know, in the moon dust of the Iraqi sand there. And it was just like, oh man, these animals were like on top of me. So I don't know if they were just curious or if they were just hungry or what, but make sure you have a reliable flashlight. But that's very specific to me. That's why I carry a flashlight at all times. And that's why I carried a particular type of flashlight and the type of batteries for a specific flashlight. I have a story for everything that I carry. So that's all I have for today. What do you carry that's specific to you? I'd love to hear about it and read about it. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys next time.